You do?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I don't know what to say, but all right. Oh, are we live? Well,
Hi,
I am.
everyone.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Howe. I'm the president of the Murder Suicide Loss Network, a 501c3 nonprofit. We support survivors of murder suicide and attempted murder suicide. And we are speaking to you tonight with Jacqueline Jameson. I'll let her introduce herself. And
Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie, and I'm a licensed therapist for 2.5 decades, and I'm also a murder suicide loss survivor. And we are here tonight to talk to you all about our journey and also about some things that are in the news. And we hope that you will join us and feel free to comment. I think we have the comments turned on. If you happen to pop in and see us, find us. If you find us after the live, feel free to also comment. If you know someone who has experienced or is a survivor of murder, suicide, loss, friend, family member, feel free to reach out to us at mslnetwork.com. And I think we'll probably post that somewhere, or it's probably in our description link, I would imagine. But yeah, we're going to have some good conversation tonight, and we hope you will join us. So where do you want to start this thing?
yeah, well, so I live in Massachusetts, and I recently had a little spot on the news advertising or, doing some getting it out there that we do it the first ever in person murder suicide loss group support group in Massachusetts at Call to Talk, which is a 988 organization. And we are trying to talk about this publicly because there is a trial happening. A mom of three from Duxbury, Massachusetts, is on trial for murdering her three children, and she attempted to commit suicide after. Um, and it has brought back a lot for me. This happened
Mm,
just after my losses, which were in 2022. I lost my mother and brother in a murder suicide. And so we're just out here trying to talk about that we offer support. But I think I can speak for most murder suicide loss survivors in saying that when this is in the news, which it is almost every day, and certainly in a
hmm
trial like this all the time, it's um it's triggering. It brings up a lot of feelings and emotions and memories of going through it myself, not
hmm
a trial myself, but yeah. Um, yeah, have you been watching this, Jackie?
Um, yes, some. I have to be careful because I will get obsessed with it and I will watch it all day, every day, and I have to be careful. So I do catch at least the highlights when I can. I do listen to I've been listening to some of the experts, and I think it's okay to say the name. I mean, it's all public information, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
you were careful about that, but I just want to be sure that we're not here to dramatize this case. We are not here to um, bring what's the word I'm looking for? We're not here to bring an audience here to look at us and it's not about that. It's really about educating ourselves and the public about these situations. And the Lindsay Clancy case is the one that we're referring to, and it's all over the news. It's all over social media, and it's triggering. It is triggering. There's certain parts about some of the things that they are talking about that are more triggering than others for me, just as I'm sure they are for you. So I think we're going to probably talk about some of that.
Yeah.
Um, I remember when it happened. My tragedy happened in 2014, so I had some years before this happened because this happened in the Lindsay Clancy case happened in 2023. But the similarity for me is, and then I know there's a lot of similarities for you too, or some anyway, is that let me back up. There are a lot of people on social media, I think on TikTok in particular, who are talking about um, some conspiracy theories around, well, the husband did this and the husband did that. And I just think it's important for us to bear in mind that we don't know what really happened. And I'm pretty sure that the detectives and the police department and everyone that was involved, because there were child deaths, that they did their due diligence and did what they needed to do to make sure that they had the facts, and that they looked into every different possibility for maybe how this all happened. Um, and these are people. These are people's lives. And uh, I also hear a lot of people talking about how um, they think he's a narcissist, and they think that he's lying and about some things. And um, we just don't know. And I really think we have to be careful. And the other big topic, I think, is the mental health industry, and a lot of flack that the professionals are getting. And I know you have quite a bit of experience with your family member, so I was hoping we could kind of talk about that
Mhm.
too. um, yeah, so there's a lot of sort of complicated things happening in this
Mhm.
case. And at the end of the day, we have three children who are no longer here and a woman who's in a wheelchair. I do have a hard time because my ex was my child's other parent. And so um, I separated from my ex after 20 years. And 3 months later, she drowned my daughter to death and tried to kill my son and tried to take her own life. And it was a failed attempt. And she's serving life in prison. And she was going to go, the attorney was going to go for the insanity plea.
Mhm.
The state wanted the death penalty. And after 3.5, almost 4 years of waiting for trial, at the nth hour, right before they were getting ready to pick the jury, they did a plea deal for life without parole in Florida, plus 30
Mhm.
years. And then they asked me finally, "Wait, is that okay?" It's like, duh, I've been saying this the whole time, because I know what these trials can do to people, and our families were already split in half. So that's another complicated thing. There's his family, there's her family, there was my family, there was her family, there's two sides.
Yeah.
And um, it's extremely complicated and life altering. And I don't know, I get frustrated with how people just talk about it like it's brunch. They're
Mhm.
sitting around having coffee, and it's just real life. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, or like they're an investigator, or like they're a clinician who's talked to this person and
In
in
person.
person. Yeah. Um, I was really upset by the stuff I was reading, and actually a friend of mine um was like, I've been reading online and all this stuff, and they think he was involved. And I was like, you need to tone it down. It's because he is a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people that I know that attend our groups that we have talked to were investigated. And if this was one of my people, I don't know Patrick personally, um, but I know the stories of our members, and I was just horrified. And I actually like had to say something to this close friend of mine who was reading
How,
this and getting.
Yeah.
persuaded that maybe this was true.
Well, and look, we don't know what happened.
No, no, I know.
We don't know what happened. And I think for purposes of this live, we'll probably say, listen, we aren't going to take sides here, except to say that there are victims and there are survivors in this case, like all murder suicides.
Hmm.
And um, unless you're in that room, you don't know
Mm-mm. No.
when unless you're in that room when it happened, you all you have is speculation.
Hmm. Yeah, it comes up a lot for me because my brother's life was um, complicated. He was, diagnosed with a severe mental illness in his early to mid 20s.
Mm,
So we were dealing with, bouts of psychosis and hallucinations and delusion for a long time. Um, but on the other hand, our relationship with our mother was also very complicated.
mm,
And she didn't want to be public, be be public about what was happening to my brother. There's a lot of secrets.
hmm
Um, and it was so much more complicated. And actually, I was just on TV, right? And I'm talking about how my mother and my brother loved each other. They were they absolutely there was so much love there.
mm,
But the things that I was not talking about was the complicated nature of their relationship. Um, and then you look online, if you look at his Facebook or her Facebook, which I had to, luckily, I was her next of kin, so I got to close it and memorialize it and stop people from saying anything. But his Facebook page is filled with horrible things, people that we
hmm
knew and didn't know, and maybe knew him and I didn't know that they, said. And uh, I'm the one reading it. My dad is the one reading it. My mother's family's the one reading it. Um, I just think people need to be more careful about using a public platform to talk about things that they don't understand and they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think unless you've really been through it and you've walked this path, it's really easy to, I think, get caught up in, these court cases because, a lot of people use this as entertainment.
Hmm.
And unless you have survived something this tragic, you don't understand the impact that it has
Hmm.
on the survivors. And so it's very easy to just go down this road, I think, of talking
Yeah,
smack. You know what I mean? Saying things
I
that you don't
agree.
really understand. And that's why we're here is to say, listen, we need to have a little bit more compassion, I think, for the people that have been impacted. And, let's be careful of what we say in public social
Yes.
media commentary. I'm curious with you, one thing for me, um, and what happened in my relationship, um, there was some, I think, probably passive suicidality, and some long-term sort of depression, and there were medications that were tried and things like that. But there was also narcissism. There was narcissism and coercive control and lies and manipulations and things. And earlier you mentioned secrets. My mom didn't want anyone to know what was going on.
Hmm.
And I believe that, it's because of that. That's one of the, I think, I was going to say the biggest things, but one of the things I think that how this happens is because we don't ask for help or we don't tell people because we're ashamed or embarrassed. Um, And in situations like this, actually, she had the therapist, she had the psychiatrist, she had, I think it was his parents, and she had him. So there wasn't a whole lot of us, whole lot of secrets. I think sometimes we can do everything right and still this thing can possibly happen. So there's
Mhm.
not an end all be all.
Mm-mm.
But that being said, I do believe that some of these murder suicides in particular can be stopped or preempted or whatever, um, if we would just speak out, if we would tell someone, if we would have a safety plan, if wrap services, family, friends, community, and and that the other people in the family, in the immediate family, need not take things for granted.
Mhm.
Like my ex told her mom and her brother, and whoever the family was she was with, that she was having thoughts of killing herself and my kids just several weeks beforehand, and nobody's told me. Like, why? Why didn't they tell me? Um, and I think sometimes because we see so much in the news and we see so much on social media and we are so desensitized to so many things
Mm.
that we think, it's nothing, or this has happened before, or it'll pass. Here we go again, and we just never know when that time bomb is gonna,
Mm.
go off. And so I think that's been my message at least the last
Yeah.
month or so as I'm starting to think about what is my role in all of this.
Yeah. I did know that my I did not know that there would be a murder involved.
Hmm.
But I knew my brother was, I mean, I
Teetering
knew he
on
was suicidal.
suicide.
There were a lot of um, calls, domestic calls, calls where he was threatening to hurt himself time and time again, calls, calls, calls. And then he stopped seeing his doctor. He, went off the grid, if you will. He was homeless for a bit. And I put up cameras in my house.
Hmm.
My mother said, "You're crazy." Um, I,
So she didn't want to believe it. She was in denial.
yeah, the morning of, I spoke to them briefly, and I texted her after, and I said, "He seems manic," was my word. He did have bipolar. There was mania. There was
Yeah.
depression.
Yeah.
It was revved up. It was heightened,
He wasn't medicated, you said,
and
right?
he was not medicated on prescription meds. Um, I don't know currently what meds he was taking to self medicate, but there were drugs and alcohol involved. But I said to her, like, this, he seems pretty bad today. And
Hmm.
she said, no, he's fine. And her friends saw her and they said, he seems pretty bad today. And she said, oh, it's fine. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know that that was the day, but I knew it was a bad day
Hmm.
for him. Um, and
But
I
you would have never thought that he would act out against anyone.
know, but there were people in our lives who were concerned about it.
Oh, and
Yeah,
nobody would hear them, or like
yeah, there was,
were you hearing it? Were you hearing them?
I was not hearing it. There was a family friend of ours who knew my mother very, very well, was very close to her. And he at some point was like, I'm concerned he's gonna hurt, my brother's gonna hurt my mother. And I was like,
Hmm.
because I was concerned that my brother was gonna be driving a car drunk with his wife and child in the car, or that my brother was going to be out and anger the wrong person on the street.
Hmm.
Um, I was not thinking that this was going to happen, but I also didn't know um, that, most murder suicides are intimate partner, family. I've done a lot of research about matricide. This is most likely to happen to the people that are closest to you. Um,
Yeah, I recently heard someone say, I think it was an attorney say 90 90 something percent of the time you will if somebody kills you, it's going to be by somebody that you loved,
yes. Yeah.
right?
Wild.
Yeah, it is wild. Uh, so I know we came on to talk about
Yeah. Sorry.
the Clancy case.
Yes.
You know, in terms of postpartum psychosis, it's a thing. Um,
Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Because you've got a
yeah, I mean,
background.
I did have two children myself, and you have a child, and right, I think there's some things that happen, and after you have a child, your body goes through significant hormone shifts, and you're not sleeping. And in her case, she already had two other young children in the home. And according to actually Patrick's testimony so far, he said she actually did okay until it was almost time for her to go back to work, which
Mm,
I can actually relate to because I had the same kind of anxiety. Um, I did not want to leave my child in a daycare center because I grew up in daycare. And um, I ended up having to do that when he was two. And it ended up going okay, but it wasn't my choice. And, I don't know if it was a combination of, because I think was he 8 months old?
the youngest one.
He was 8 months old. So,
Um,
you know, she probably wasn't getting a whole lot of rest in general, but the idea of having to go back to work and I think she just tailspent. And they said something about her being diagnosed bipolar. They didn't diagnose her as bipolar until I think after the fact,
Interesting.
right? After the fact meaning I mean I don't know. I don't know if there was a bipolar diagnosis in her records. I don't know if you heard that from one of the treating psychiatrists prior to the deaths. I'm not sure. But, psychosis really is just where I guess the best way to describe it is have you ever been driving so long that you think you see something running across the road at night?
Yeah.
Like you're on a trip and you're driving
Yeah.
and you're like, you think you're seeing things, like that's psychosis. And you're so tired and you're so like just done that your body, your mind literally cannot function. And so it was a number of things for her. I do believe that based on what I know so far about the medications she was trying to, take, what they prescribed her, the fact that it was postpartum anxiety and depression, the fact that she wrote some things in her journal, the different specialists that I've listened to, I believe that she was experiencing, you know, these these different like hallucinations or it's like an out of body experience. um, I'd like to believe that she really couldn't help it, but people said that about my ex, and so I have a really hard time with this because I can't imagine as a mother, no matter how tired I am, no matter how anxious and depressed I am, no matter how many voices I heard, that I would act on this.
Mm,
I'd like to believe that. I'd like to believe that I would have the wherewithal that I could leave them in the basement, lock the door, and run to a neighbor. You know what I mean?
mm,
Or call
mhm,
911 on
mhm,
myself. So I have a hard time with this. There's no I guess the difference between her case and mine in
mhm,
particular is that mine was, my partner left a note out of he was I mean she was angry because I had left her. So it was a very different kind of circumstance. However, she's saying, I mean, she took a bunch of pills and stuff too, but she left the note, but she's saying now that she can't remember. And then there was some talk of multiple personality disorder or
mm.
dissociative disorder. And I just maybe this is like one of these other people who are out in the world who've never experienced it. And so I'm saying I can't relate to that even as a counselor, because as a mother, I can't imagine ever a, a switch ever flipping enough in my mind to ever do that to my kids. And I get really angry because when I hear about murder, suicide, loss, I'm like, take yourself, leave everyone else alone. Like I don't understand it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I don't know. I'm talking in circles, I think, but
No, but I think it's a good point because my brother, uh, I was on the phone with my brother shortly after. I don't know exactly how long after the murder, for hours, before the police, before I realized, like, so my brother had periods of psychosis where he um would hear voices and they were telling him bad things, or he thought air conditioning units were telling him jokes, or he thought the house blew up and there were guys with hazmat suits here.
mhm,
Um, we heard, we knew that things were not good. We knew that he was not well, but then he would have periods where he was okay.
mhm.
Um, and then he would
Uh,
go ahead,
would,
please.
was that so with him though? Was it drug related or was it mental health? Was it the bipolar? Because I think, that's something that's important to note.
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
is somebody have, because you can have hallucinations, you can have
Hmm.
bipolar disorder with psychosis,
Hmm.
with or without psychosis,
Yes.
but you can also have psychosis if you take certain drugs. And so I wonder
Yeah, no, and
with
I don't
him.
know. I was never sure. Well, no, I was never sure whether I just assumed he was always using and off his
Hmm.
meds. I know there were times where he was on his meds, but I think the great vast majority of time he was not. He didn't like how they made him feel. He didn't like that they dulled him. He didn't like the side effects. Um, so it's a
Which
really
is
good
very common
question.
for people with
Yeah,
bipolar disorder.
absolutely. Those meds, haven't taken a lot of them, but I've tried, some antipsychotics for sleep, and I know
Mm,
how that makes you feel, and I can't imagine being on them,
hmm.
trying to function on them.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's a good question. Hard to know. My brother started having symptoms. Well, he started doing drugs first around 14, 15. My mother gave him these drugs. So, like, um, alcohol for partying, cocaine for wrestling. He started doing mushrooms and he tried them all. So I don't know what came first, um, the drugs or the mental illness, and they just sort of were tied together. My therapist explained it to me that this was just at some point he was not going to be able to live a life outside of an institution, whether that's a mental health institution or a jail institution or dead. He was just not gonna. Every time he had these kind of episodes, his brain was getting worse. Um,
Oh, uh-huh. Was he
so
schizophrenic?
he was not diagnosed
Okay.
as.
Hmm.
It was bipolar with, I guess, psychosis. I've heard
Hmm.
schizoaffective disorder,
Okay. Yeah.
um, narcissism, certainly.
Yeah.
but it's so hard to know. Hard, I don't, I never knew. I never knew what was going on, except that it was probably just not good.
Yeah.
Um, so good question, but I can't imagine what would have led him. It wasn't his child, certainly, but I was concerned for her. But I don't know what would have led him to having a bad day to setting his mother's body on fire. I just don't
Yeah.
know. And I spoke to him in between, and I was concerned. I was like, "What is really happening? Like, where is our mom?" And he
Oh,
said she's out
before,
with
yeah.
just yeah, she's out with a friend. I thought, okay, that's why she's not answering my calls, my texts. Um, and so then once the police were called, then we heard several different versions of the story. Um, it was she overdosed herself on drugs and she asked me to do this. And then just I set her on fire. And it was just, there's no,
Mhm.
it was hard to know, like, was it happening before? When did it start? How long it had been happening? It could have been all day. We just don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, and I don't know that I ever will. Uh,
Right, and so, again, there's a speculation,
mhm,
right? And I don't know, you live in a sort of a small town, and I'm wondering, were there people or are there people still that have opinions and who take sides and who maybe look at you even a certain kind of way or your family in a certain kind of way?
mhm,
Um, um, conspiracy conspiracy theory kind of situation,
mhm.
and what is that like?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to know because most people here don't talk about it.
Hmm.
Literally don't mention it. I tell them who I am. We kind of have a moment of recognition, and then we move on.
Yeah.
Even most of her closest friends just don't talk about it. We're So I don't know. I'm sure people speculate wildly. The newspaper speculated wildly that he was she was about to kick him out of the house and this happened, and that's just not true.
Hmm.
So
Why do you think? Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Why do you think people don't want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think that it's a good question. I'm curious. Um, I wonder if they don't know what to say. I wonder if they
Have you ever thought
have
about just when the time is right, obviously, just
uh,
starting the conversation?
well, that's the hardest thing. So I will sometimes.
Yeah.
They'll be like, "Oh, how?" And I'm like, "Yep, my mom was Susan Howe." And they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yep." Or if I will say, I lost my mother and brother in a murder suicide, and they do.
Yeah.
Uh, and they're like, "Oh, I heard about that. That I didn't know that was you."
Hmm.
Um, what do people talk with you about it?
It's gotten a lot better. I mean, I have some years on you, right? It's
Mhm.
been not quite 3 years for you, right?
4, almost 4.
Four, almost four. Okay.
Yeah.
So May was 12 for me. I would say, I mean, and I'm not from a small town. I'm from Palm Beach County, Florida, and we are the largest county south of the Mississippi.
Mhm.
And it's sort of just, and our counties run like back to back concurrently. So it's like just, you don't know where one starts and one stops. It's just constant. Um, and I mean, certainly in the city where I live, there are friends and family and my church community and um, people that I had known that knew um, that I had worked with in the past, and they knew some things even. before I did sometimes, which the media was, it amazes me how they can go to the courthouse and get documents of like police records and things like that. And they were coming on the news and saying things about my case before I even had any idea. And I was like, how is this happening? Um, but now, because it has been 12 years and I am a lot more outspoken about it, just in the last year and a half or so, I actually, so the day that it happened, I was with like 12 other of my friends and we were
Mhm.
kayaking. And then the day before it happened, we were at church. And so the community is very tight, and it wasn't until the last year or so that I actually made it a point to call each person that was involved, like very closely involved, and go to dinner with them and thank them for just being there that day and just acknowledge to them how hard it must have been for them. And I asked them if they had any questions for me or if there was anything
Mhm.
they wanted to say or if um, they wanted to tell me something. And it was really good. It was healing for me, it was healing for them, and then there was that less awkwardness, like
Mhm.
when we would see each other. But that stuff takes time, and sometimes the best thing to do is to not talk about it with certain people, um,
Mhm.
because it's too much for them. And so I know that, and I try to just honor that. And I also know that some relationships that I did have, like, I just can't have those same relationships with some of those people because they're too triggered.
Mhm.
So some friendships were lost and put aside.
Yeah.
And that's hard, you know.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Uh Once in a while I'll have people say like, "Oh my gosh, you're that person," And like, yeah, but they're like, "I'm so sorry. I don't know how most of the time people just say, "I don't know how you do it." Like, I don't know how I would do that. I don't know how I would survive that. And you just do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of those things people say when they don't know what to say, but I think that they probably feel it. Um, I don't get that as much because I lost my mother and brother.
Mhm.
I hear more. I know I have someone in my family that lives in that kind of relationship where the mother is aging and her son with some psychiatric something is at home with her and they're like, I'm worried for my cousin, friend, whatever. So like thanks for talking about it because it needs to be talked about.
Oh, good.
Um, so that I hear that a lot, but then I think that's scary for them
It
and to
is.
have it continue going on and um but I don't know. I wonder, I just in terms of Lindsay, is there I don't know if you have a professional opinion or just a personal one on what they could have done to help her, keep her and her family safe.
Hmm. I mean, that's such a tough call. If she was actively stating um, that she was continuing to have these ideations, these thoughts, I don't think that she should have been left alone with the kids or by herself at all.
Mhm.
And I know it's hard. I guess his parents ended up having to go home. And I mean, I'm sure he'll beat himself up for the rest of his life for leaving that night.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I know I do, for leaving my kids with her. But how, how do you really know? And we don't know what was happening that day. Actually, we do know what was happening that day. They
Mm,
said she took her daughter to a
mhm,
doctor appointment. They played in the snow. They built snowmen. So I can't say really that I would have done anything different if I was
mhm,
him,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Things seem to be going good. You know, uh, I don't know. I don't think there's a magic answer. I think we just really need to pay attention more
Mhm.
to the
Yeah.
nuances, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. My mother's friends were nervous. They didn't want her to be alone, and yet there, who do you call on?
Yeah.
Uh, she was with a friend, a like dear friend, just before this happened. You can't have someone with you, and I think that's frightening. I mean, I think for my brother, I tried to get him in about, I don't know, 4 months, 6 months prior. Right, he started working with a very renowned specialist in Boston. Um, and they thought he needed an inpatient stay of 2 weeks. I forget whether it was 2 weeks or 2 months. Um, and it was very expensive.
Hmm.
Very, very, it was.
Yeah, I would say mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, is cost prohibitive, right?
Hmm.
If you don't have health, even if you have health insurance, if they are not on your plan or there's a copay, most people cannot afford it.
Oh, yeah, no.
And that's where there is a breakdown in the system. There
Hmm.
are only a certain number of days that um, an inpatient hospital, an emergency inpatient hospital can keep someone when they are
Hmm.
suicidal or even
Yes.
or even homicidal. I believe where some of the system breakdown is actually that, well, someone has to self-report that they want to hurt themselves or someone else.
Hmm.
So if you think that somebody might do it, but you didn't hear them say it, even a police officer, if they don't admit it, they can't do anything about it.
Hmm.
So then
Yeah.
it becomes the responsibility of the other person, whoever that other person might be in this person's life, to keep themselves safe from this person.
Right.
If somebody really wants to take their own life, the reality is we're probably not going to be able to stop it. At
Hmm.
some point, if they really are adamant about this, then at some point it will probably happen. And like I said before, there's only so much we can do there, but I do think that we can do a better job of preventing the murder
Hmm.
part of the
Yes.
murder suicide.
Yeah. Yep.
But the mental health system, at least in America, is we're heavily reliant on health insurance. Most people can't afford it. Um, Medications are very expensive. We don't have any real gun laws. We haven't really touched on weapons, but
Hmm.
like 90% of the murder suicides we
Hmm.
see are by gun.
Hmm.
Like the case that was just recently in, I think it was in Minnesota. No, it wasn't in Minnesota. It was the six children and the
Hmm.
dad and the mom, right?
Yeah.
K Carol Kowitz, case. I recently just found out that while she was in China with her adopted girls, see, the incident occurred on July 24th. He bought a weapon on July 16th. I think it was July 6th. It was
Wow.
it was right before.
Yep.
Um, and some of the things that happened, the as methodical as it was, the way things went down, there was definitely like premeditation there.
Mhm.
No history of real domestic violence that we know of, and this was kind of the case with my ex. The the wife was very private. She didn't really talk to anyone else about what was going on in the marriage, but there was infidelity. He lost his job.
Right.
There was some manipulation. There was probably some, narcissism, personality disorder type things. And there's just no real way of there's no real way of like knowing that anything like this is going to happen. Um, but anyway,
Mhm,
the mental health, situation is just it's something that we definitely need to talk about. Sarah, one of
mhm,
our
mhm,
PhD students who helps us in the Murder Suicide Loss Network, she said people are starting to jump down the throats of mental health providers now, like, you
mhm,
guys aren't doing enough and you suck and why aren't you, big correcting more people and why aren't you this and why
mm,
aren't you that?
mhm,
Well, I mean, nobody would like for the mental health system. I would love to see the mental health system improve. And
mm,
but you know what? We don't have the funding for that. We don't have the money for that.
mhm,
And
mm.
we have limitations.
Yeah, I understand that though. That was my uh the people that I felt, and I understand that they couldn't, that there's patients' rights, but I felt like why couldn't someone reach out to us and say, "Hey, I've suggested he be inpatient. Something has changed to the point where I think he needs, a longer term treatment." Um, I- Outside of that, I tried to get him this longer term treatment, and we had a family meeting. My mother,
Hmm.
my father, my brother, and I, and it was agreed he would go. My mother would pay for it. This was going to happen. And I think a day or two before he was supposed to start this program,
This
he
happened.
no,
Oh,
he went off the grid. He became homeless in a different part of Massachusetts. We couldn't reach him. So if he,
okay.
he didn't, he said he'd go, but then he didn't want to go, and you can't make him go.
Exactly.
So then he comes home and he says, I want to, I'm going to get sober. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get, and then this happened. He had been inpatient like a week before at a different hospital.
Yeah.
I don't know the story, but he had just been inpatient.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how to, I don't know what else we could have done.
Yeah. I think each individual scenario, each individual case has its own twists and turns and maybe things that we could have done different along the way. But I think the biggest thing we need to do is this, what we're doing right now is talking about it and publicly and bringing awareness and education to the world,
Mm-hmm.
and to the masses that, this is much more common than what people realize. Um, I had to take a couple days off from looking in the news to see
Oh,
what the next one was because I just, it was like every day. And there for a few days, it was multiple in a day.
yeah. There were some
Um,
days because I've been keeping track on our website. There are some days where there's 4 or 5
yeah,
in a
yeah,
day.
yeah.
And as the person responsible for keeping tabs on this, I bet those are
It
rough
can be,
days.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of what I'm seeing on like TikTok, for instance, too, is like people are saying, they're because they've been in a maybe a domestic violence relationship with
Mm,
with a man or men, and so they're like men this and men that, and I'm like, okay, listen, I get that, but this can be anyone, we do see that these murder suicides are mostly white men with a gun.
mm, mm.
So that trend is there, right? I mean, I'm not making that up, right?
No.
Based on the data we've been keeping and the short time we've been doing it, that's what it has been. So, I mean, I would like to see more laws, and I don't know that this is going to happen. I feel like with great freedom, like we have great freedom in America,
Mm,
and with great freedom comes really big responsibility.
mhm,
And I feel like we are not taking responsibility for our gun laws, and
mhm,
we have things kind of mixed up here. Um, and I think if somebody has a mental health issue or even if they I don't know, I wish that we had stricter gun laws. But the thing is if someone wants a gun, they can go get a gun. They don't have to
mm.
have it legally. So I think therein lies the problem. And, of course, that's a whole other platform of
Mhm.
conversation to have. But I recently went to Japan and they have virtually no crime,
Mhm.
but guns are outlawed.
Mhm.
Even knives, weapons. Like I went down when we were there to get a pair of scissors for something, and he said, "You have to stay right here and use it. You can't bring it to your room." Yeah. So America will never be like that.
I mean, to just to like shout out to our group, we have people that join us from other countries where people don't have guns.
Hmm.
And this kind of thing is even more, there's even less murder suicide. It's even more shameful and
It is.
stigmatized.
Yeah.
And it's because it's happening even less there.
Yeah.
And I neither of our situations was a gun. So
No, no. I just wanted to bring that up. That
no, I just thought I'd mention, that's one of it's another live. I do want to I think we could go for 15 more minutes if you would. But I do want to bring up because the Lindsay Clancy trial, and we had talked about this sort of beforehand, um, brought up for me and my father, who is with us this weekend, how so my brother was arrested the night of the murder.
hmm
And he did not go to a mental health facility. There's like a Department of Corrections mental health facility. The judge signed a different order, different section, the wrong one. They wouldn't take him. They said he had to go to prison, and then
hmm
someone in the prison could what. So he ended up in a prison with the highest suicide rate in Massachusetts, um, and was able to kill himself in a sorry in a suicide proof room.
mm
Um, and so he did not end up going to trial. We did not have a trial. Everything stopped. Case closed. We will never get the investigation of what, any
mm
further investigation than the preliminary stuff that we had. But my father and I were just talking about how hard it would have been to be in Patrick Clancy's shoes. And I think in, it could have been your shoes had your case gone to trial. I mean, it was bad enough being in the news for a few days.
Yeah.
Um, and then just to have everything everywhere, news, social media.
They dig into your life. I mean, things that eh, there's no privacy, and you have no choice, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I knew that that was what was going to happen. And I also there were people who blamed me for this because I left her.
Right.
I left her, and she lost her job, and she this and she that. Well, there were also people that she told things to, that she said things to that were not true about me. And so those things were in the back of people's
Hmm.
minds, that she told them that I had cheated on her prior to the separation. I think kind of like Patrick Clancy. I don't know if that's true or
Hmm.
not, but people are saying, oh, he just wanted them to be gone so that he could go and live with his new wife.
Hmm.
Um, so there was that. And to this day, well, in the beginning, I felt like I had to defend myself. And I felt like there were people who questioned me. Um, I I later found out some of the things that she had said to people, and I was able to give them my side of the story. But there are still things that I haven't gone public about that happened in our relationship that I need to, because those things I think will shed light on some of the behaviors over time that I think people need to be aware of and they need to be on the lookout for
Mhm.
in maybe their own relationships
Mm.
that are red
I'm
flags.
yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you, that people,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But you only know what you know again, and
Right.
this is like what's happening to him, and they're like scrutinizing every second that he
Yeah.
was not there that night, where he was, how long it took him to get there, who he was on the phone with. There's cameras that, are showing what he was
Okay.
wearing and what he did while he was there. I mean, he could have been picking his nose, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
um,
Well,
yeah,
and months before that,
right,
there were these people talking about, oh, he ran a marathon, and his current wife was also like, um,
right, right.
you can't. I just
Does he have kids now?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I think that would be very difficult. Um,
Yeah, I'm there was in my case a consideration of going to court after my brother died about some estate things, and I decided
mhm.
that it was um, not worth it for many reasons, including I didn't want the media circus. I didn't want my brother has a wife and daughter who survived him. I didn't want that
For them.
already
Yeah,
stressed. Yeah, they're already stressed, and then
yep,
to go through more, but also like
yep,
I didn't want to deal with it. So
yeah.
it was nice to settle, but like he doesn't have any option.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. I have actually started trying to imagine what it would have been like, and I don't know that I can,
Yeah.
because it's
Well, the thing about murder suicides when they're successful is, though, that people don't often get resolution
no.
and they don't make the news. I mean, they make the news, but they don't make the news like this, like the Clancy case, for instance.
Right.
And I think people are forgetting, or maybe they're not, but I haven't heard the words murder suicide, but I think it's because it's a failed attempt. She had a failed attempt. But I think it's important for us to label that, especially as the Murder Suicide Loss
Mhm.
Network, because
Absolutely.
that's exactly this is what this is.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
only way that our group is ever going to get awareness and education is for us to talk about these kinds of cases because otherwise, when the murder suicide is successful, there's nobody it comes out maybe in the news and the next day
Yeah.
it's gone because there's
Yeah.
another one, you know?
Yes.
Um,
Yes. That happened recently with one of our members. I won't be specific at all, but this member lost some family members, and it was in the news. And then another
yes.
situation close by happened.
Yep.
And so they went from that family to that family.
Yep.
And but then you don't get the resolution. You don't get the time to talk about it. Um,
But
and
at the same
instead,
time, like our grieving was drawn out for almost 4 years, right? Because when
absolutely.
you do have to go to court over and over and
Yes.
over and over again and see that person every single time, the person that killed your
Yes.
kids, and your community has to go, and I mean, that's a whole other thing.
Right.
So it's kind
Right.
of like
Right. Yeah, so
that's
so
why the
if you could in our last like 5 minutes, if people are watching, and I see that some people are because our website is getting some hits, just FYI.
okay, I
Um,
can't see that on my end, so I
I
was kinda
I get it, but anyway, what would your message be if we could get it out about tonight's live stream? What was your my message for the night is
um, I mean, I have a couple, I think. One is if you are here and you are watching this. I think the reason we call it the final act is because, you know, in most cases, it is sort of the final act of like an acting out of maybe a toxic relationship or someone with severe mental health or somebody in it with addiction. But it's, the final act of maybe the narcissist um, who left a note because of revenge. And um, I know for me, I wish that I would have had more information, known about red flags, spoken to somebody about more sooner, and just don't take things for granted. Don't, if you even get the slightest intuition or sense that somebody might hurt themselves or someone else, don't shrug it off. Do your part. It doesn't mean that maybe you will be successful in stopping the suicide, but the point here really is ultimately to stop the murder.
Mhm.
Um, we'd like to stop the murder and the suicide, um, but yeah, the devastation of the murder suicide and we mentioned, I think, familicide,
Mhm.
filicide. We didn't talk about that, but we can get into those things next time. So yeah, don't keep secrets. Say something. See something. Say something. I think is what I said last time.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you do have an opinion about these cases, the Lindsay Clancy case in particular, just be mindful of what you say, how you say it, and know that these people have families. They have aunts and uncles and cousins and siblings and friends and people that care about them who have been affected by these babies that have died by the loss that everyone has experienced. And would you want people saying these things about you if you were in their shoes? So yeah, how about you?
Beautifully said. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that survivors, friends, family, Patrick Clancy, anyone going through this, anyone who has gone through this. We just had someone join our group whose losses were almost 30 years ago. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter. We're
No,
all there to support each other.
that's right.
Um, we're here and we understand. And um, come talk to us. Come get that. Really, it's just, I keep saying this, but it's just a beautiful, empathetic space that we have where we can come talk about it. So come talk to us about it. We are here for you. If you need resources, we can help. Um,
And how should they do that?
don't, yeah, thank you. You can contact us at team at murdersuicidelostnetwork.com. Our website is murdersuicidelostnetwork.org. .com redirects us to. You can find us our social media, MSL network. Um, reach out to us
Yeah, and we have groups every week.
every week,
Wednesday and Friday, they alternate Wednesday and
alternating.
Fridays and at times because we do have people from other countries, so we try to give people,
Yeah.
um, times that they can come, and it's just a safe space.
Mhm.
If you've been through this, you know that there are not a lot of places you can go to just talk about what's really going on, how you're feeling, how you're triggered in your day, and just talk with people openly like this, like we're doing tonight,
Mhm.
and know that it's okay. And you don't have to feel awkward or ashamed or embarrassed
Mm-mm.
about your situation, whether your family member was the victim, the survivor, or the perpetrator. Um, we support those people, and we also support um, survivors whose family members, friends survived the suicide
Mhm.
attempt as well.
Mhm.
So um, we're the only ones that do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think and if anyone is listening and you know someone, tag them, let them know about us. you can find everyone that is on our board on our website. Just reach
Yeah.
out. We're here. Um, and you're
Trying to
not
get the
alone.
word
You're
out.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for spending this hour with me
Yeah, of
and with
course.
us.
So we'll do more, and maybe we'll get a little bit of traction here, and
Absolutely.
maybe we'll be a little more methodical about what we're doing
Yeah,
moving forward. But this was
absolutely.
great. No, I mean this is great. Just so that people know what to expect in the future. But I think we need to keep having these conversations out loud.
Absolutely. The more you say it, the more the shame, the stigma is reduced, and it's potentially life saving
Yeah,
to have these conversations.
absolutely. All right. Well, you all have a good night. You have a good night,
Yes.
and we'll see you next time.